Hi guys, it's me Terri of the Yarnjoy podcast. Welcome back to part 6 of the baby educational ball tutorial. Okay, so this is the 5th panel in the ball, but of course the first part of the tutorial was showing how to make the panel itself. So this is actually part 6 of the tutorial series. Okay, so this is a pattern by Patricia Heller. Thank you so much, Patricia, for allowing me to do a tutorial on this project. Okay, so for this panel we're going to be doing the fox head, and so for the yarn you need, you're going to use the same weight of yarn that you've been using for all of their project. I'm going to be using orange for the main color of the fox, black, just a little bit of black for the eyes, and the tip of the nose I'm going to go ahead and use black. It does call for brown for the nose, so you can use that if you prefer. Okay, and then white. Okay, and I'm using number 3 weight yarn because that's what I've been using throughout my project. I'm using a 3.0 millimeter hook because that's the hook I've been using. And you're going to need a yarn needle to sew in your ends, a stitch marker, and of course a pair of scissors. And then let's see, oh, and you will also need some just a small amount of stuffing to stuff your fox's head with. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to be taking my orange. We're going to do the head part. The snout part is a separate piece that we will sew on. Okay, so starting with a magic circle or magic ring, I'm going to make 6 single crochets into that ring. Of course, you can chain 2 and work 6 single crochets in the second chain from the hook if you prefer. Okay, but I'm going to use the magic ring. Okay, so 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and now I'm going to just pull on that beginning tail to cinch up my circle or ring. Okay, and then I'm not going to be joining the rounds. I'm just going to be working in a spiral. So going on that, so that is this was round 1, and so you have 6 single crochets in it. Okay, so going on to round 2, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the first stitch. So 1 and 2. Okay, and then I'm going to put my marker in the first of those 2 stitches because that's going to mark the first stitch of that round. Okay, and then going on in the next 4 stitches, we're going to put 2 single crochets into each of them. Okay, so there'll be 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2. Okay, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then we're going to have 1 single crochet left, and we're going to just, before we get back to the marker again, and we're just going to put 1 single crochet into that stitch instead of 2. Okay, so now we have a total of 11 stitches all the way around our circle, and that is the end of row 2. Okay, so for round, round. So for round 3, we're going to take the marker out so we can move it. Okay, so going on to round 3, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and we're going to repeat that sequence 5 times, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet right at the end. Okay, so going on to round 3, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the first stitch, so 1 and 2. Put our marker into the first of those 2 single crochets that we just made. Okay, and then we're going to do so we did 2 single crochets in that first stitch, and so in the next stitch we're going to put 1 single crochet. Okay, and then the next stitch we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. And then the next stitch we're going to do 1 single crochet, okay? And so we're going to do that sequence all the way around until we have 1 stitch left on our round, and then I will finish this and meet you up at in that 1 stitch that we have left, okay? Okay, so I just got to the end of round 3. I have 1 stitch left before my marker, and so into that last stitch I'm going to just do 1 single crochet. Okay, so now at the end of round 3 you should have a stitch count of 16 stitches. Okay, going on to round 4, I'm going to remove my marker, and it says round 4, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then we will repeat that sequence around until we have 1 stitch left. Okay, so in the first stitch I'm going to put 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Oops, split my yarn there. Okay, and then I'm going to put my marker into the first of those 2 stitches to mark the first of my round. Okay, now I'm going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, we're going to repeat that sequence around. So we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Whoops. Okay, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around until we have 1 stitch left before our marker. And so I'm going to continue on doing that, and I will meet you at the end of the round. Okay, so I got around to the end of round 4, and I have 1 stitch left before my marker, and so in that 1 stitch I'm just going to do 1 single crochet. Okay, so now you should have a stitch count at the end of round 4. You should have a stitch count of 21 stitches. Okay, going on to round 5, I'm going to remove my marker, and then it says round 5, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around. Okay, so 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2. Place our marker into the first of those 2 stitches that we made. Okay, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then we repeat that sequence around until we have 1 stitch left. So that's 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to repeat that sequence all the way around until I have 1 stitch left, and I will meet you when I get to the end. Okay, so I got around to the end of round 5. I've got 1 stitch left before I reach the marker, so I'm going to just do 1 single crochet into that stitch. Okay, so that's the end of round 5, and at the end of round 5 we should have 26 stitches around. Going on to round 6, I'm going to take out my marker and then read the instructions. It says 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches. So 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2. Put our marker into the first of those 2 stitches. Okay, and now we're going to do 1 single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around. 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around until we have 1 stitch left before we get to the marker, and I will meet you there. Okay, so I've got to the end of round 6. I have 1 stitch before the marker, and I'm going to just do 1 single crochet into that stitch, and that finishes round 6. And so at the end of round 6 we should have 31 stitches all the way around our circle. Okay, going on to round 7, we're going to remove our marker, and then it says 2 single crochets in the first stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next 5 stitches. So 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 and 2. Put our marker into the first of those 2 single crochets that we just made. Okay, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet each in the next 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and then we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around until we have 1 stitch left before the marker, and I will meet you there. Okay, so I got all the way around to the end of round 7. I have 1 stitch left before I get to the marker, so I'm going to do 1 single crochet into that stitch. Okay, and now that is the end of round 7. So at the end of round 7 we should have 36 stitches all the way around, and that is the end of the instructions for the head. Now we're going to go on to making the ears. Okay, so going on to make the ears, I'm not going to fasten off. I'm just going to pull up the loop so then it won't unravel, and I'm going to take my hook out, okay, and then I'm going to take my white yarn. Okay, so I got my yarn attached to my hook with a slip knot, my white yarn, and I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch, not where the orange is, but the next stitch, okay, around, okay, and then I'm going to draw up a loop, and I'm going to be joining this yarn with a slip knot, okay, I mean a slip stitch, okay. Now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and that's going to count as our first double crochet, okay, and in the same stitch I'm going to put 1 double crochet into the same stitch as the joining, okay, just like that. Okay, now I am going to fasten off, because that is my first ear. Just leave a little bit of tail there to weave in when I get finished. I'm going to act like I'm chaining 1, but then I'm just going to pull my yarn all the way through to fasten off. Okay, tighten that up. Now I'm going to get another section of I'm going to attach the white yarn to my hook again with a slip knot. And now I'm going to, from the stitch that we put the 2 white stitches in, I'm going to skip over 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the 5th stitch I'm going to attach my yarn with a slip stitch, okay, and then I'm going to chain up 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to make a 1 double crochet into that same stitch, okay, and now I'm going to fasten off by cutting a little, just a little enough to weave in the end, okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did over here, fasten off by chaining 1, but then pulling my yarn all the way through to fasten off. Okay, so there are my 2 ears, okay. Okay, so to finish off my ear, I'm going to insert my hook into that loop that we pulled up with the orange, and I'm going to pull the loop back down, you know, get my hook back into place, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch into that same stitch that last single crochet was made, okay, and then if you want to, you can go ahead and work over your beginning tail of the white just to help secure that down. Anyway, I'm going to do a slip stitch. Okay, now I'm going to chain 3, but not real tight. You want it fairly loose. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to do a single crochet at the top of these 2 double crochets in white that we made, okay. It is actually in the top of the 2nd stitch. Just try to get a single crochet kind of in the top of the point, because you're making a point on the top of the ear, okay. just like that. And now I'm going to chain loosely three chains, so 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to come down the ear and put a slip stitch into the next, or the first unworked single crochet from that last round of the orange that we did, and we're doing a slip stitch there. Okay, now I'm going to slip stitch in the next 3 stitches, these ones that were skipped. I'm just going to slip stitch to get myself over to the next ear. So slip stitch into each one, working myself over to that point. Okay, now we are ready to go up the next ear. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and remember, don't chain real tightly. Single crochet up at the top of those 2 double crochets. Do a single crochet. Okay, and now we're going to chain 3, make 3 chains loosely, so 1, 2, and 3, and then come back down and do a slip stitch into the first unworked single crochet on your head part and do a slip stitch. Okay, so that should finish off our ears. Just kind of work with them to get that white kind of in the middle there of the ear, see? Okay, so now we're just going to fasten the orange off, but we want to leave a tail so that way that would help us to sew the head onto the panel, okay? So cut it, you know, allow yourself a good amount of tail in order to sew that on, okay? And so since we did a slip stitch, I can just go ahead and pull my yarn all the way through to fasten off. Okay, so now we have all these tails at the back, okay? Just take your yarn needle and then just kind of secure these tails. You don't have to cut them really short or anything. I mean, you don't have to hide them completely because this is going to be on the underside or between the panel and the head. But you want to get these where they're kind of at the back of your work, okay? So I'm going to do that and then I will be right back. Okay, so I got the extra tails weaved in, and all I did was I kind of did a stitch down so I could get the ends, the white ends into the head area. Just make sure the stitches, you can't see them from the back or from the front. And then I just tied the ends together in a knot and trimmed them short, okay, because that's going to be all underneath and it won't be seen. Okay, so now all I got is the long tail to sew the head onto the panel, okay, but we're not going to do that quite yet. Okay, so we're going to put that aside, and now we're going to make the snout of the fox, okay, and it is 5 rounds, so it should go pretty quickly here. Okay, so I'm going to use black, and it's just the very first round. And what I can do, since I'm using black and it's hard to see, let me pardon my reach here. I'm going to get this piece of paper, and I'm going to put the paper on top of this black background, so then you can see my stitches easier, hopefully. Okay, so taking my white yarn, all I'm going to do is make a magic ring, and I'm going to put 6 single crochets into that magic ring. Okay, and that's the only round I'm going to do with the black. So 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and then we're going to pull on the beginning tail to cinch up our circle. Okay, and now since I'm going to change color, I am going to go ahead and join my yarn to the first stitch of the round, okay, because I'm going to change color. And so just make sure you have 6 single crochets around. I know it's difficult to see because it's black yarn, but we are going to be changing to white, and that's going to be a whole lot easier to see. So join with a slip stitch into your first stitch. Okay, and then you can fasten that off. Doesn't have to be too long. You can just tie the ends together in the back just to secure them, or whatever. It's going to be on the inside of your snoot. And then go ahead and just pull that yarn through since we did a slip stitch. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to be taking our white yarn, and so for round 2 we are now going to just join by inserting your hook into the stitch where you joined your end of the round from round 1, okay, into the first stitch. Okay, and then you're going to pull up a loop to join your new color, and just go ahead and do a chain 1 to lock it down. And now we're going to do just 6 single crochets all the way around, just 1 single crochet in each stitch around. Just make sure you have 6 single crochets in this white color. So there's 1, 2, and you can work over your beginning tail, 3, 4, 5, okay, and 1 more, 6. Okay, now we are finished with our white. Okay, and going on to our orange, since I'm going to be changing color, we're going to be changing color again. Go ahead and you can slip stitch into your very first stitch of that round to finish off that color. Just join with a slip stitch, okay? Okay, so now I'm going to cut this yarn because I'm finished with that, and I did a slip stitch so I can just pull my yarn all the way through. Okay, now I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to get my orange yarn. Okay, but before I go any further, I think I'm going to go ahead and deal with these ends just a little bit, because I want to make sure there's not a hole in the very center of my yarn. I want to make sure that that magic circle is nice and secure. Okay, and then I'm just going to tie those 2 ends together in a knot. And then again. Okay, and now I can go ahead and trim my black, since I did already tie them in a knot. So I'm going to trim those a little shorter just to clean that up, and it's easier to see what I'm doing. Okay, and now I can go on to round 3. Okay, going on to round 3, I'm going to take my orange yarn, and first I'm going to insert my hook into one of the single crochets of this round. Okay, so remember you should have 6 single crochets around in the white. Okay, so I'm going to draw up a loop with my orange, chain 1 to secure it down, and then it says, going on to round 3, it says 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Okay, and we're going to do that twice. So let's do that. So 2 single crochets in the same stitch that we're joined into. So just do 2 single crochets into that stitch. Oh. So 1 and 2. Okay, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet each in the next 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet in that stitch, 1 single crochet in this stitch, and now we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, And then that is the end of round 3. And so we should have 8 stitches around our circle now. Going on to the round 4, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch and then 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and we're going to do that twice. Okay, so get your hook all the way over to the first stitch of the last round. Okay, we're going to do 2 single crochets into that stitch, 1 and 2. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that sequence one more time. 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2. And then 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now we should have 10 stitches all the way around our circle. Going on to the next round, round 5, and this is the final round. We're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch and then 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches. So 2 single crochets, 1 and 2 into the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, that is the end of our snout. Okay, so it says fasten off with a slip stitch, so I'm going to slip stitch into my next stitch. Okay, and then leave a tail for sewing, because you're going to be sewing the snout onto the face, and just pull our yarn through since we did a slip stitch. Now these tails, the beginning of the orange tail where you joined and the 2 white tails from the snout, you can just stuff that in there in the snout, and you can use that as stuffing to stuff the snout. Okay, there you go. And so now we're going to take our head and we're going to put the yarn tail on, yarn our yarn needle with the orange yarn, and I'm going to sew the snout onto the center of the face. Okay, the center of the head. And you can refer to the picture in the pattern as far as placement goes. But all we're going to do is just yarn our needle. Okay, and then I'm just going to put it right in the center where the starting round is on the face, the head, and I'm just going to stitch that down just with a in and out weaving, in and out stitch. Come up from the bottom and up through a stitch, the next stitch on your snout. Okay, and then go back down through the snout on the next stitch and down into the back, into your headpiece. Okay, and so you're just going to do that all the way around, and I'm going to finish sewing that on, and then I will meet you up when I get to the end of that. Okay, so I just got my snout sewed onto the middle of my face. See that? Okay, and I went ahead and weaved in the tail just a little bit in the back just to kind of secure it down and cut it short. Okay, so going on, I think I'm going to go ahead and put my eyes in. So I'm going to take a piece of my black yarn and just stitch on some eyes. Like I said, you can refer to the picture. Here I'm working with the black again, so I'm going to put my paper back down here. Just refer to the picture as far as where you want the eyes to go. Just make a few stitches. Okay, so I just made a couple of eyes here. I just did 2 or 3 stitches with my black yarn, just kind of eyeballing it. I mean, just estimating where I wanted to put the eyes, and I stitched them both in, and I'm just going to secure the back by tying the 2 tails together in a knot, double knot. okay? And then trim my end short, okay? And now I am ready to sew my fox head down onto my panel here. Okay, so I'm going to be stitching my face down onto the panel. I'm just got my yarn needle with the yarn tail I left for the head, and I'm just going to work in and out around the circle here, stitching just like we've done the other appliques in the other panels. And right before I get to the end, I'm going to, and it's just optional if you want to, you can put a little bit of stuffing in there to make his head just a little bit more three-dimensional if you prefer to do that, or you can just stitch it on flat, however you want to do it, okay? And you can leave the ears free, you know, not stitch them all the way flat down, but leave them kind of sticking forward. I think that would be cute. So I'm going to go ahead and get my face stitched on, and I will see you at the end. Okay, so I've almost finished sewing my face of my fox onto the panel. I'm just going to, I think, take some of the orange yarn that I have left over, and I'm going to use that as stuffing. Okay, and you can use your crochet hook, the end of your crochet hook, to stuff it down into that hole. Okay. I think I'll take a little bit more. You can use polyester fiber fill if you prefer, either that or some of your yarn scraps. Gives it a little bit of more three-dimensional effect. And now I'm just going to finish stitching my face down. Okay, and then secure my tail on the back. Just running it under a few stitches. In fact, you can work the yarn over to where one of the other tails are, and then you can use that to tie the two tails together and tie it into a knot. Of course, I always do a double knot. Okay, and then... Okay, so that is the end of today's installment of the Baby Educational Ball tutorial. I hope that you are enjoying this tutorial series, and that it's something that you can make you would want to make for a baby in your life, or a baby shower gift or something. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.